this story is a controversial story because an elder statesman has spoken. Kwame Pianim says that it's a shame Ghana's Yale-trained finance minister has been a historic disaster. Kwame Pianim says it's a shame that Ghana's Yale-trained finance minister has been a historic disaster. Now, if a finance minister has been a historic disaster or has been a historic success, it's something that concerns us here on Good Evening Ghana. So we're going to do the analysis. Before then, though, we know that we are broadcasting to a few. They'll put Kwame Pianim's photograph here. Can you have Kwame Pianim's photograph there? We know that we are broadcasting to some of the millennials, so they don't really know who Kwame Pianim is because they've not taken time to have a record of looking at some of the books that I've talked about him. That's Kwame Pianim in your photograph. But I'm now going to tell you a few things about Kwame Pianim that you need to know before I come to analyze the data. So who is Wofa Kwame Pianim, as we call him? Wofa Kwame Pianim is a senior citizen. He's over 80 years old. But Kwame Pianim has a significant part in Ghana's political history that has not been told or that has not been written, so younger people don't know it. Now, some people say that Kwame Pianim was the reason why President Kuffour became. I'm going to explain how that happened. So Kwame Pianim he studied economics at the University of Ghana, later on went to America. I believe he studied at Yale as well, and got an economics degree. He came back to Ghana to work for the ministry and Cocoa Board in the 70s during the Champon era. He was thought to be a brilliant and fantastic economist. He worked with people like Ian Omabo and Victor Selomi and others within the context of Ministry of Finance and the Ghana Cocoa Board with Kwame Kuffour and others. Kwame Pianim was married to a European-American woman, I believe, at some point. Now, this is how Kwame Pianim then comes into Ghana's political history. He's always been a constitutionalist. You know, Kwame Pianim is a politician who believes in constitutional rule. And so, he attempted a coup d'etat. Now, he attempted a coup d'etat to overthrow the PNDC government of Flight Lieutenant Rawlings. The story is very interesting. The rumor is that Kwame Pianim was dating a young lady. Now, I know who the lady is, but I'm going to mention her name. A very famous person in Ghana. She's my birthday mate, actually. Now she's also quite old. She's over 70. But the rumor is that Kwame Pianim was dating her. She was very close to the PNDC regime. And so it is reported in the rumor that Kwame Pianim's movement was seen by the lady. He may have discussed it with the lady, and then the lady who was close to the PNDC people told the PNDC that the man I'm dating, or the guy I'm dating, Kwame Pianim, whom you all know, I think he's preparing to overthrow the government. You guys should be careful. It's a rumor, isn't it? Okay. So and that's why we are not mentioning names. So the lady is suspected to have told the authorities, Kojo Chikata and Ejebwedi and Jack Begley and others, those who were in charge of the security apparatus of the PNDC in the day. A report was made to Flight Lieutenant Rawlings. Kwame Pianim was arrested and he was put in jail for 10 years. So jail because apparently there was not sufficient evidence to convict him, because as lawyers know, the mental element, the mens rea alone is not a crime. So if you present somebody before a court for treason, you must have some basis to be able to prosecute. Kwame Pianim was not really prosecuted. He was kept in jail for, he was convicted actually, without sufficient prosecution. In those days, the prosecution was not like today. There was no rule of law. It was a military coup d'etat. So they take you to some, what they used to call kangaroo court, and then you are convicted. Okay, but the conviction is entered down into the books. So the story gets interesting as we get here. Who is Kwame Pianim is the question we are answering before we talk about what he said about Ken Ofori Atta. Okay. So Kwame Pianim then is convicted, 10 years he's in jail. He comes out of jail, and then in 1992, he thinks about becoming the NPP presidential candidate, but he doesn't actually enter the race. Then in 1996, which is around after July, August 1996, Kwame Pianim wants to enter the race to become the NPP presidential candidate. Professor Albert Dubois had been the candidate of 1992, and he was also in the race for the 1996 election. But people were thinking that Dubois has been there for very long. He has so much antagonism with Rawlings, and that is not time for Dubois. He served his term. It's okay, let's find a new candidate. Now, this narrative benefited Kwame Pianim. Kwame Pianim rose up to become the candidate to beat. And I'm not exaggerating, viewers. Those of you who remember. Those of you who didn't see it, Kwame Pianim's posters were everywhere. Kwame Pianim ran a campaign in 1996, like the campaigns you see in 2020. That's how Kwame Pianim ran his campaign. He was thought to be his campaign was really oiled, because at that time, Kwame Pianim's son had married Rupert Murdoch's daughter. No, was it the other way around? Yes, no, Kwame Pianim's son. Yes, Kwame Pianim's son, who is a half-caste Ghanaian, because I told you his wife was white. Kwame Pianim's son had married Rupert Murdoch's daughter. Rupert Murdoch is the owner of big television enterprises around the world, Fox News, Sky News in England. The movie that you watch, the movie platform, belongs to Rupert Murdoch as well. So he's quite supremely wealthy. He's a billionaire, actually. He still is. Now, his daughter had married Elkin Pianim. And so Kwame's campaign was said to have been oiled from that source because the campaign was really oiled. Now listen to the names who were behind Kwame Pianim's campaign. His campaign to become the NPP presidential candidate: Charles Reko Broby, Nyaho Tamaklo, Victor Newman. Now you have to connect the names. Victor Newman, Nyaho Tamaklo, Charles Reko Broby. These were the people who were advancing Kwame Pianim's campaign, and all the young people jumped onto Kwame Pianim's campaign. That's how I met Kwame Pianim, because in 1996 we were all hanging around over there. They said, Kwame Pianim is coming, let's go and see him. And people were singing songs that they sang for Nkrumah to Kwame Pianim. So Kwame Pianim was a big deal. But there was a problem. Okay. So the problem which emerged in a conversation, which I heard in a conversation among Kwame Pianim and these stalwarts whose names I've mentioned to you, was this. Under the Constitution, any person who had attempted an overthrow of a government who had been convicted of treason was disqualified from running as president. Under the Constitution, fundamentally that. Those who supported Kwame Pianim said that, well, the government that Kwame Pianim tried to overthrow, the PNDC government, itself was not a legitimate government. So if you attempt to overthrow the PNDC government, the constitution that the PNDC government overthrew, the 1979 constitution, had a clause in there that encouraged Ghanaians to fight to establish the constitution. So that Kwame Pianim's, those who were defending him, his lawyers, his advocates, were saying that Kwame Pianim's attempt for the coup was actually to restore the 1979 constitution, and therefore he should not be looked at as a convicted person of treason who is disqualified from running the election. It was becoming a very thorny issue because as far as the election on the ground was looking, Kwame Pianim was going to win. He was going to defeat Professor Dubois. He was going to defeat J. Kuffour. He was going to defeat Kwame Safwedu. He was going to defeat Ken Ofori Atta. Pianim was going to win a landslide because the NPP believed that here is our messiah. He's the guy who is going to be able to overthrow Rawlings. He's going to win the election and defeat Rawlings. If the NDC are spending $1 million, Pianim will be able to spend 10 million. We are going to win this election with Kwame Pianim. And they used to call him Kwame Pianim the winner. In fact, till today, recently I interviewed him in his house at the airport. And when I saw him, I said, Kwame Pianim the winner. And he said, you still remember that. That's how they used to call him. Pianim's candidature was a glorious one. He was going to win. Okay. So his people began to converse and think, what do we do with this albatross? Because then those who were opposed to Pianim in the Congress, like Professor Dubois, like J. Kuffour, then began a campaign to the delegates that, look, if you elect Kwame Pianim as the leader of the NPP, the NDC are going to disqualify him and you will not even have a presidential candidate. And they said, oh, but why? They said, because he attempted a coup. Didn't you know that Kwame Pianim attempted a coup? Now, these were the NPP competitors who were telling the delegates of the NPP that you people are so excited about this Pianim candidature. The man is disqualified. I'm telling the story, isn't it? Okay. So Kwame Pianim and his people decided, look, let's not let this albatross hang around our neck. Some of them, it is reported that Charles Reko Broby, for instance, said that, forget about the albatross. Let's go to the Congress and win. And let's become the candidate of the NPP. Then let's face the NDC head on and let them say that the NPP candidate is disqualified. They will not be able to say that. The world will not accept that. So they will not be able to say that. So Broby and others thought that, Kwame, let's not go to court. Let's go and fight the Congress and win it. Because this Congress, we're going to win. We'll defeat Professor Dubois. J. Kuffour at that time was not in the reckoning to win. It was Kwame Pianim and Dubois, really. So they said they're going to defeat Professor Dubois. Okay. Then there were other voices who said, Kwame, no, let's not do this. Let's go to the Supreme Court. Let's find one of our own to file a writ against us at the Supreme Court. Let the Constitutional Supreme Court panel hear the matter. And if the Supreme Court then comes and says that you are free to run as presidential election, then our campaign will hit the roof and we will win. That's better. So, back and forth. Kwame was the decision maker because he's the candidate. He decided that, look, I want to go to court. So what did they do? They found a friend. Rosemary Kwame is the name of the lady. They found her. And then she went to Supreme Court, even though she's Kwame's friend, filed a writ against Kwame Pianim and said that she's asking for a declaration by the Supreme Court that on the basis of the conviction that Kwame Pianim is not qualified to run the presidential elections. The case is reported in 1997 Supreme Court Law Report, is entitled Ekwam versus Kwame Pianim. Okay, so the Supreme Court panel was constituted. I forgot, I should have checked the panel and let you see their photographs. It was constituted. I hope you're following the story. The Supreme Court panel was constituted. Kwame Pianim's lawyer was Joe Reindorf. Who is Joe Reindorf, by the way? Now, Joe Reindorf had been the lawyer for the government whose constitution had been overthrown. Joe Reindorf had been the Attorney General of the Liman administration whose constitution had been overthrown by Rawlings. The argument was that Kwame Pianim was overthrowing Rawlings so that he would restore the 1979 constitution. Who else could he get as a lawyer? The Attorney General of the 1979 constitution, the legendary Joe Reindorf, was Kwame's lawyer. Okay, so the case was filed. Ekwam versus Kwame Pianim. Okay, listen to this carefully. The New Patriotic Party was invited by the court as an interested party. The New Patriotic Party, because Kwame Pianim had a preliminary matter. The preliminary matter was an injunction upon the NPP so that the NPP cannot go ahead with the Congress without the finality of the court's decision. The court upheld that application and said that the NPP is injuncted from holding their Congress until the Supreme Court has heard Kwame Pianim's application. Okay, this is all about Kwame Pianim. I'll come to what he's saying. I'm just giving you a gist of who Kwame Pianim is. Okay, so the NPP was invited as an interested party. The NPP by Peter Alajete, who was the chairman of the party and also their lawyer, came into the court and said the NPP was not interested in the matter. They were not going to file arguments either for or against Kwame Pianim. They were not interested in the matter. I believe that Peter Alajete was with Nana Kuffour in that case. I'll check. But I believe so. Peter Alajete with him, Nana Kuffour, maybe most likely Tony Akoto and Powell, Philip Addison, same group of people who used to do the constitutional cases. But Ajete led on this occasion. And Ajete told the court that the NPP was not interested. It was quite disappointing to some NPP foot soldiers that this is our man. He's going to win the election. He's in court. Why is the party saying they're not interested? But that was the legal argument that was used. Then the next thing happened. The court felt that because it's a matter of constitutional interpretation, the Attorney General, Obed Asamoah, should be invited into the case. That seemed like a blow to Kwame Pianim. So Obed Asamoah, the Attorney General, came into the case and filed his documentation. And he essentially filed that Kwame Pianim should be disqualified from running as president. Okay, so the Supreme Court panel, fully constituted, heard the matter and delivered the coup de grace. They said by a 3-2 majority that Kwame Pianim cannot run for president in Ghana, given the fact that he had been convicted by a court of attempting to overthrow the PNDC regime. It was there that the whole conversation about the legitimacy of a coup regime came up. The court was of the view that the establishment proclamation, which was delivered by the PNDC in 1982, constituted a legitimate government of Ghana. And that international organizations and international bodies and other countries had dealt with the PNDC as though the PNDC was the legitimately constituted government of Ghana. The court held, therefore, that the establishment proclamation of 1982 by the PNDC to establish themselves as a government of Ghana was indeed valid. And anyone who attempted to overthrow the PNDC can be convicted of treason. And therefore, Kwame Pianim's conviction was right, and he cannot run for president. So that ended Kwame Pianim's political career. Okay, the next question. The Congress was about to happen. The Congress was going on. So with Kwame Pianim now disqualified, who and whom are the candidates for this election? Kwame Pianim was now disqualified. Now this is where the story is, and this is where some of Kwame Pianim's best friends feel that Kwame Pianim was let down by the Kuffour administration. Kwame Pianim threw his weight behind J.A. Kuffour. So with Kwame Pianim out, the contest was now between Professor Dubois and John Agyekum Kuffour. Professor Dubois and John Agyekum Kuffour, that's where the contest was with Kwame Pianim now out. Pianim threw his weight behind John Agyekum Kuffour, and that was the reason that many political analysts gave for J.A. Kuffour's victorious run over Professor Dubois in a first-round victory at the Congress of 1996 at Legon. Kwame Pianim was out. He gave his support to Kuffour, and Kuffour won almost a landslide against the great Professor Dubois. Kwame Pianim felt that he had not been recognized by the Kuffour administration that later took power in 2000, 4 years later, because he lost 96. Kuffour came again in 98, and then he won. The Kuffour people felt that Kwame Pianim's push was in 96. In 98, they won it themselves. The others say that no, if you didn't lead in 96, people wouldn't have felt that you should lead in 98. So you still owe Kwame Pianim a debt of gratitude. But that's a conversation I think the important people are having. This is how the 1996 Congress ended in Legon. Remember that the backbone of Kuffour's victory had been Kwame Pianim with the story I've given you. This is how it ended.
Proceedings started at 10 in the morning and ended at 10 in the night. But the party faithfuls waited patiently for the outcome of the voting, albeit with some anxiety as no one knew who would emerge winner. The Congress started off without Mr. J.A. Kuffour, one of the aspirants. When he did come, the chairman of the party, Mr. Peter Allah Ajete, was delivering his speech.
What is important, ladies and gentlemen, is that at the end of the day, when one person emerges as our presidential flag bearer, all of us, in truth and honesty, to gird our loins and without denying or withholding anything from such a flag bearer, support him and back him to the hilt so that he will be accepted not just by our party, but what is more important, by the country at large.
Each of the contestants was proposed by 2 delegates. Then came the actual voting. All the delegates were asked to go out, leaving the room empty. After that, all the 2,000 delegates were called, constituency by constituency, to cast their votes. One could see anxiety written on the faces of all. And for a good 4 hours, the delegates went through the voting procedures, which were followed by another 2 hours of counting. Then came the moment everybody was waiting for, the announcement of the results.
Out of the valid votes cast, Dr. Dan Selby had 24 votes, which comes to 1.2%. 1.2% of the valid votes cast. Dr. Safuadu had 42 votes, and that amounts to 2.1 of the valid votes. Then Dr. Jones Oforata had 69 votes. That is 3.5%. Then Mr. J.H. Mensah had 110 votes, which is 5.5% of the valid votes. Professor Dubuahin had 711, and that is 35.7%. Mr. J. Kuffour had 1,034.
The losing candidates first pledged their support to the winner, Mr. J.A. Kuffour.
Naturally, I am disappointed, but I am not discouraged. Democracy is at work. The people have made their decision. We now have a leader of this party, and all of us who are committed NPP will put our energies and service at his disposal, work as hard as possible to ensure that victory comes to NPP 1996.
I would like to congratulate him and want to assure him that he can count on me. We should know that this is just a means to an end.
I would like to send my heartiest, warmest congratulations to Mr. J.A. Kuffour for winning so decisively and with such resounding results.
I am sure that with Mr. J. Kuffour holding the flag of the NPP for the coming presidential elections, and more importantly, since he believes he will try and foster this alliance and make sure that victory is won in December this year.
I will continue to involve myself fully in the work of the party. We want power. We want power. We want power. We want power. We want power.
The contest is now history. And as is the tradition of our party, I resolve to work effectively with my colleague aspirants. The 5 illustrious colleagues have a wealth of experience, which I intend to tap to lead our party to victory this year.
Being nominated as a presidential candidate is one thing, and winning the actual presidency is another task. How Mr. Kuffour is going to fulfill this ambition will depend on the Ghanaian electorate who go to the polls in December this year to exercise their franchise. As to whether he will be given the nod or not, well, time will tell. Francis Esu, GTV News, reporting.
I don't know where Francis is these days. Himself and Atokito and others, they gave us great news reportage in those days. So that was the Congress that Pianim's people felt that this one was Pianim's victory that was handed to Kuffour because Pianim was disqualified. So that's the end of the story about who Pianim is, and his place in history, which we think he deserves, is the narration that I've been